Welcome to my Mercury Summer Special Deep Dive video. Mercury, the planet of communication, of talk and thought, of fast exchanges, of the expression of sparkling ideas through its rulership of Gemini, also our connections to neighbours, siblings, technology, instant and quick messages, and through its rulership of Virgo, which is very much to do with discrimination, attention to detail, meticulousness, but in a way that gives us some kind of practical and tangible outcome. Mercury is very quixotic this summer, making its way through 4 zodiac signs and 2 of them twice. I'm going to unpack all of this for you. We've got a Mercury retrograde, of course, at the heart of it. I'm also going to share with you the big picture of Mercury in 2024. There is some very exciting information to share then, but please stay with me. I then will go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces and relate to you from the perspective of the ascendant, the sun or the moon, what you can expect through to the end of September. So from the start of July to the end of September. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here, it's lovely to have your company. This is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please feel welcome to share them. If you're a returning visitor, your views and interactions, as ever, are truly appreciated. As I've recently shared, about 50% of people who regularly enjoy my videos are not subscribers. If that's you, please help the channel to thrive. Click that sub button and also that bell notification symbol. If you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, I am a consulting astrologer. Please see the link beneath this video. You can check out my testimonials. I don't edit these as they come in, I share word for word. Explore how other people have experienced working directly with me. If you'd like to get your free written daily horoscope fired to your device each morning, I provide an overview of the day, of the primary astrological influence, so we get the big picture, plus we can enjoy our zodiac forecast. Please see the link below to subscribe. If you're a patron, thank you so much for all your support. I'm going to upload a factoid on Mercury retrogrades, and patrons get a lot of extra information like this, and you can become one from $3 a month. Finally, it's that time of the year when I'm launching my very special and unique offer. You can get your year 2025 personal horoscope forecast based on your absolutely unique birth data, but get the rest of year 2024 free, 30% off, but also your life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights to the patterns that have played out in your life so far. Transits are the moving energies in the sky which interact with your unique blueprint. By understanding them more, we can better time our moves. Now you can buy this package in terms of tropical from a Placidus viewpoint. If you prefer to have it in whole sign, you can have that. If you don't know your time, there's my solar option. And if you would like to check out my draconic version based on your soul or karmic energies, please see below for more. All of them have the same deal. The rest of 2024 free, all of 25 plus your life roadmap report. Please see below for more. So Mercury started this 3-month period at the very start of July in the watery sign of Cancer, but was in a magical link with Neptune, also in the watery Pisces. Our imaginations were really being aroused by that particular aspect. But soon, as Mercury moved on the 2nd of July, in terms of universal, into Leo, it went by the 3rd into a direct opposition with Pluto. That was followed by Venus and of course the Sun. So July's been a month when we've all experienced, become much more conscious of this brutal polarization that seems to exist in the world these days. Finding that middle path is not so easy. Even people who might want to follow the middle path could in some ways be attacked, it seems, by people with different viewpoints who are more entrenched. But seriously, we may have encountered someone who was quite bombastic, who had a might is right attitude about their ideas, what they believe, and that may have actually been quite bruising. But when we got to the 17th of July, we started what's known as the pre-retrograde shadow, which I'm sure many of you know about. But this whole process through or around a Mercury retrograde, which itself is only about 3 weeks, is actually near to 10 weeks, because Mercury then gets to the degree where the retrograde gets to at the end of its inverse. So at 21 degrees and 24 minutes on the 17th of July in Leo, Mercury was slowing down, and that's when snags can start to occur. But of course the retrograde itself begins on the 5th of August in the sign of Virgo, because Mercury returns home to Virgo on the 25th of July. But when it does, and I'm just showing on the screen now, it's in a square with Mars in Gemini. And that square is pretty tight. It's just slightly over 3 degrees. So having Mars in Gemini, which Mercury rules, Mars in Gemini can be very outspoken about its ideas. Mercury in the sign of Virgo can be very much about providing services and being very aware of responsibilities and obligations. But one of the things with that right angle means that whilst Mercury is in Virgo, I think we can feel quite a lot of tension. So it's not just the retrograde. This event chart is when Mercury returns to Virgo. Then of course we have the retrograde itself, which begins on the 5th of August, and that's at 4 degrees and 6 minutes. This is all very synchronistic, as I will explain. But then we have on the 15th of August, we have Mercury inverting back into the sign of Leo. And then on the 28th of August, Mercury ends its retrograde in the sign of Leo. Guess what? At 21 degrees and 24 minutes. Now the post-retrograde shadow period is in September, because Mercury is going to be returning back into the sign of Virgo on the 9th of September. And it's going to be there through to the 26th. So the total days in Virgo will be 36, but the post-retrograde shadow period ends on the 11th of September at 4 degrees and 6 minutes. So you can see the synchronicity, all of it. And then we have on September the 26th, Mercury makes its way into the sign of balance, Libra. I think we're all be very happy for Mercury to arrive there, because it's going to forge a sensational link to Pluto for the first time in over 220 years between these two zodiac signs. But what I want to steer you towards, we can look at the meaning of the Mercury retrograde in Virgo and in Leo, and I'm happy to do that. But at the very heart of August, we're going to have Mercury in its retrograde, firstly in Virgo, but then in Leo, in an opposition broadly within 3 degrees to Neptune. So if you're expecting Mercury to provide its usual glitches and delays and snags and irritations, totally understandable, Neptune brings another extra dimension and complexity. Also Venus in Virgo is going to go face to face with Saturn in Pisces in the middle of August too. So this is going to be a particularly awkward Mercury retrograde, to be honest. But it's really important that we do try to work with Mercury retrogrades and gain some benefits. So let's just think about the sign of Virgo. Virgo is the 6th zodiac sign. It's of course Earth. It's mutable, so it can flex. It loves to find solutions that help things. So people who have very strong Virgo charts, or Mercury in the 6th house in another zodiac sign, will be people who love to provide services, and that attention to detail can be a great gift. But for us all collectively, Mercury retrograde in Virgo is a wonderful time to think about our physical vitality, fitness and health, to think about our life structure, to think about the type of work we do. Is it something that really satisfies us? Is it something that helps people or not? Could we start a service up that would be of benefit to people? Are we really taking our diet as seriously as we could do? Yes, we can eat good food, but we can also all be attracted to those treats, whether it's calorific goodies, takeaways, stuff that's a bit too yummy for our own good at times, but also stuff that may be ultra processed because it's quicker and our schedules are tight. So the precision of Virgo gives us an opportunity to analyze things. So if you're walking around the supermarket, don't necessarily be seduced by the advertising. If it says totally this or totally that, it might be that it's not telling you something that it also has in it. You know, I was looking at some ice cream last night and there was some locust gum used as a binder. Carrageenan, which is a seaweed, is used as a binder, and it's said to provide some problems potentially with carcinogenic energy. So it's important to be a little bit more picky, and of course that's where the Mercury rulership of Virgo, and Virgo being to do with virtue, it's not technically to do with health insofar as I feel that Scorpio, because Scorpio's our life cycle, if you like. Virgo's more to do with our choices. And the more informed, obviously information, the Gemini energy, we use the precision of Virgo, Mercury and Virgo, the more we think, discuss and analyse what we're eating, drinking, how we're structuring our life, how we can make a number of refinements. Because if we change 10 things 5%, that's a 50% change. So we all have a huge opportunity with Mercury's retrograde from the 5th to the 15th in Virgo to look at those issues. But just be aware that once Mercury inverses back into Leo on the 15th, it's still in that opposition with Neptune. Now Mercury in Leo can be more sociable for sure, more bubbly, can have a greater need to connect to people, and it could mean that something that we've learned through the Mercury retrograde we want to apply in some kind of more social or interactive way. So what we have at the heart of August is a quincunx between the position of Mercury and the position of Neptune. A quincunx makes it very difficult to forge in a more homogeneous way an outcome that's useful, so we can be a little bit out of sync. But certainly the precision of Mercury retrograde in Virgo gives us a great opportunity to grapple with things, but not to be deferred by the energy that's going on with Neptune. Now the other influences, I've told you about the square with Mars at the start of its journey. It is in a glorious conjunction with Venus on the 8th of August. So if you did, despite Mercury's retrograde, want to connect with someone or apply for a job, and remember Mercury retrogrades can be an opportunity to reset, recalibrate, reassess things in a way which changes our posture but gets a better outcome. Now there is a Mercury cazimi in Leo on the 19th, but that's squaring up with Uranus, so that could be a very tense event. What is a cazimi? It's when the Sun and Mercury are exactly combined or unified in the sky, in the heart of the Sun or the disk. This is known as an inferior conjunction because Mercury's retrograde, and it means Mercury's this side of the Sun. So the Sun amplifies the energies of Mercury in Leo, but they're squaring up to Uranus. So a very electric energy there, and essentially it could make us a bit hasty about something that draws us in to do with speculation, perhaps to do with our professional situation. And so the quick thinking and the brilliance that a Mercury cazimi can create needs to be tempered by not acting in too much of an impulsive way. On the 24th of August, Mercury is in a sextile with Mars. But by the 7th of September, Mercury is squaring up again with Uranus. But then we have that escape valve, if you like, because on the 9th of September, Mercury returns back, but out of retrograde, into the sign of Virgo, but emerges from the post-retrograde shadow on the 11th. Then on the 26th, we have Mercury moving into Libra. And that's today. That the whole journey is coming to an end in terms of the 4 quixotic zodiac signs. So I'm going to just explain to you what I feel the Mercury retrograde in Leo is about. The Leo energy can be, as I mentioned before, rather prideful, but it can also be to do with our social world, but also our creativity. And one of the big things for this whole period is whatever we came up with in terms of our instincts, with that trine between Mercury and Neptune at the very start of July, then we started to manifest in terms of confidence, energy, enthusiasm with Mercury in Leo. Then we started to have the pre-retrograde shadow, so we started to become more aware of things might not be quite as perfect and magical as we'd like. Then as Mercury moves into Virgo, we're being asked to really grapple with the details and perhaps be more realistic about what's not quite perfect. Then the Mercury retrograde in Virgo comes along and we really see what's snagged, but we also see that if we can work with this and be patient, there are some opportunities to move forwards. Then Mercury moving forwards in Leo gives us an opportunity to use the amended plan in a creative way, but the return of Mercury to Virgo to really get whatever we want to achieve working very efficiently. So this is a classic form and function. Whatever brilliance we have is going to be tested to destruction, but if you can really stick in there with it, by the 26th of September, you'll be ready to announce it to the world in the most marvellous, animated, powerful and persuasive way, because Mercury essentially is about how we think, but how we express our ideas. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces. So Aries, whether it's around your social world, around a romantic involvement, around a creative project, around your work, particularly if you're someone who has to express and use a lot of flair, the energy making its way through the sign of Leo has given you an awesome opportunity to animate what you're about. But one of your great gifts is that you do get stuck in. You go for it. When you get that instinct, the action you take can be remarkable. So it's possible with the pre-retrograde, the retrograde itself through the 2 signs of Virgo and Leo, and then the post-retrograde and return of Mercury to Virgo, that you've got a bit of fine-tuning to do. Or it could be that you're going to find out that that job that you really wanted could be a little bit delayed, or there may be some finer details attached to it that you're or were not conscious of that you're going to find out about. So what can you do to negotiate this? Well, I think in some ways it's to try to set your expectations in a really sensible way. So in other words, have maximum belief in the amount of sunshine, energy and drive that you can apply, but at the same time understand that going through the processes is equally as important. And if processes do bore you, that's going to be more of a challenge for you as an individual. If you're someone who's got, a lot of Taurus in your natal chart, or your houses mean that you are very pragmatic, you're not going to be in any way shaken by this process. But you do get an opportunity, if you're patient, particularly if it is around connecting to people or one particular person, by the end of September, you're going to get to where you want to be. And believe me, even by the end of August, there's a magical signal with Venus moving into your opposite sign. So persistence is going to be important over this next period of time. So Taurus, because there has been energy manifesting in your second house in the guise of Mars and Jupiter, that's making you really want to make sure that that part of your world that's always very important to Taurus, finance, is sealed up and safe. But the energy that has been in Leo is much more to do with how you feel about things. Might be dramatic in this fire sign, But for you, Virgo energy can actually be very creative and playful, but it doesn't mean to say it can't have a purpose. For example, if you invite people round and you want to spoil them with that fourth house energy, you're going to make sure that you think of all those little details to make it as enjoyable and as a pleasant proposition as you possibly can. But if there is somebody that you're drawn towards in terms of your social situation, or it is someone more romantically, obviously Mercury retrograde in the fifth house could suggest that there may be some delays or snags, or maybe things aren't going to go in quite the straight line that we'd all like they can. So just remember that it's where you culminate that's really important. So there could be a little bit of a pause, a stop, a reassessment along the way. But for you, having the energy, including your ruler Venus, from the 5th of August in your 5th house and joining magnificently with Mercury on the 8th, is still an opportunity for you to manifest the very best of your warmth, affection and personality. So Gemini, Mercury being your ruler, you could argue that you'd be more attuned to this than other signs, and I think that would be a perfectly reasonable proposition, particularly because you've got Jupiter and Mars coming together in your sign on the 14th of August in the most sensational of ways, which is going to really superpower you up and give you a lot of drive and determination to gain traction. The energy in the sign of Leo, initially with Mercury, gives you the chance to showcase the quick thoughts of your ideas, but in that sunny way that's inimitable to Leo. But the energy in the 4th house is also pointing towards something that's very, very important for Geminis, and it's something that Uranus has been just trying to grab your attention about for some years, that there's a great deal to gain by giving yourself permission to get in touch with how things feel, because you're so sharp and so able to pivot and make a joke out of things or get on with different people. There is a tendency, I feel, to not quite look at the issues that you really need to, because you don't necessarily feel you have to, because you'll move the moment. But I think the Mercury retrograde in Virgo particularly suggests that whether it's a case of where you live, how you live there, a family relationship, how you actually communicate within your close circle, those are things that you do have an opportunity to look at carefully. But if you do, there can be something that's bright and charismatic and effervescent that comes from it. And once Mercury moves into your fellow air sign of Libra on the 26th of September, and you get a huge boost at the end of August with Venus moving into that area, which rules Libra, a very sociable period can develop as this 3-month of slot of energy comes to a close. So Cancer, think of what you were manifesting in June. And as we went into July, so Mercury was giving you the opportunity to work on something that was important for you as an individual. Maybe there was a challenge around the finances of that idea, particularly in July. And as we're coming to the end of July and we have the switch of Mercury into your 3rd house, perhaps now you can start to see a sharper way of engaging with that. What's not to like? Well, maybe there is still some more information to come out, and that's where the retrograde could prove frustrating. If you are thinking about buying a new mode of transport, I do think it is important to be careful. I don't agree with people that you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that through Mercury retrograde season. As I've shared, the total period is nearly 10 weeks of the pre and post retrograde series. That means that about 40 weeks of the year nobody would do anything. What we can do is use the precision of the sign of Virgo to make sure that we check out the details, and details are really important. So with that in mind, and the combination of Venus and Mercury on the 8th of August, that could turn out to be a really lovely connection. The 3rd house, of course, can be neighbours, could be a gathering, could be a reconnection with a sibling, could be a text message or an email comes in that you're not expecting. Don't see Mercury retrograde in binary terms, bad and bad. It can be good. It all depends on our posture to it. And if we take that positive approach, but we're guarded and we do the things we can do well and more efficiently, you can work through it. Now, of course, then because of rethinking it with the first part of the retrograde in Virgo, it may have a cost implication as Mercury returns back to Leo. But that's something that you've been grappling with for some while. And then, as you have the arrival of Mercury in your fourth solar house, very redolent of the energy of your sign, I think you're going to feel a lot safer and a lot happier about this whole project or strand that's been evolving by the end of September, but it will definitely start to pick up momentum in a very positive way from the 9th of September. Leo, when you're on fire, after all, your ruler is about that furnace that heats all of our existences, well, you can be unstoppable. But the movement of Mercury into Virgo is an opportunity for you to start to see the build-up of the foundation of something you've been manifesting over the last month, but it may need some tweaks. And if you can step back and see that that is part of a process, and if you try something and it doesn't quite work as you originally envisioned, don't be too down about it. Remember, how we think, we create. Mercury is about thinking. And also the second house moving into the sign of Virgo, it is also about finance, but it's about self-worth and our values. So something around your situation to do with the things that you've been interested in and engaged with recently can start to take shape, then perhaps hit a little bit of a slow point. Maybe there are some adjustments that need to be made, but as Venus moves to join up with Mercury on the 5th of August, believe me, that can be a ka-ching moment for you, despite the retrograde. But then with Mercury inversing back into your sign, if you do need to go through that process of some fine-tuning, the more philosophical you are, the more you take it in your stride, the better. By the end of September, indeed by the end of August, as Venus moves into your third house, joined by Mercury towards the end of September, the ideas that you're just juggling with, adjusting and working with can really start to sparkle outwards in such a brilliant way. So see it as a process. Believe in what you're doing. Know that there could be some pauses, but that doesn't mean to say that they have to be terminal, and you will still find the way forwards. And the Mercury retrograde season will actually see you get into the place that's really right for you, even if it's not quite the same place as you thought it would be at the very start of the process. In some ways, Virgo, this particular Mercury retrograde season is quite awkward for you, because the energy that we've had in the sign of Leo has been in some ways asking you to take a step back, reflect a little bit, but particularly around your professional situation, which is actually looking really bright. Maybe there's a big opportunity and you need to make some key decisions, and there could be some research to be done, but there may be part of you that wants to start going forwards with it and then can reconsider. And it could feel that you're not quite seeing it through if you judge yourself for that, but don't. Because once the transiting Mercury returns to your sign on the 9th, but comes out of shadow September, comes out of shadow on the 11th, you're going to get the clarity you want. And by the end of the month, in fact, by the end of August, your finances can improve. But by the end of September, something you weren't sure of, or that seemed quite transitional, or felt a bit stuck, or it was one step forwards, two steps back, you will know exactly where you're standing. And financially, it can be a good place as September comes to a close. And to be honest, I feel that it could be a new job or a new package or a new way of marshalling your resources, which after some tentative thinking and that stop and go process can all fall into place for you in due course. So Libra, the energy in Leo is very friendly. The energy that's been manifesting in Gemini, very adventurous. Adventurous friends, travel, breaking out, really good stuff. It's just that when Mercury moves into the sign of Virgo, be it in retrograde or not, it is activating your 12th house. That can have a tendency to see us a bit more anxious, a bit more uncertain, perhaps a bit more reflective, feeling a bit distanced or detached from people. You could then have a bit of a concern about something, and then someone can reconnect, but then you might want to retreat again. So it's an interesting one. Despite the blaze of positivity around you, if there is one situation that you're not entirely sure of, perhaps it's a relationship, maybe a job, an interest, a friendship, you are going to go through a bit of soul searching. And one of the things you're going to find out with both Mercury and Venus, your ruler, in your 12th house in the early part of August, is who's for you. And if there are some situations where you're not entirely sure, they are going to become clearer to you. And once Venus moves into your sign towards the end of August, that's going to be a very positive moment, as will Mercury moving into Libra on the 26th of September. But there is something that needs to be teased out. It's something about your connection, something about friendships, something about your future, but something that's not quite right. And you need to kind of pinpoint it, tease it into the open, look at it, really understand what it is. Maybe it's a little bit of a lack of confidence, to be honest, or it may relate to an old situation that's left an imprint in terms of how you think, which is difficult to get beyond. But you can, and you certainly can, by the end of September. So Scorpio, for you, Leo represents very much your connection to the world in a more public way. Can be to do with work, can be to do with local voluntary activities. It's your profile, how people see you, not necessarily how you see yourself, but it can be linked to goals and success, whereas the 11th house of Virgo, very much about our network, our interactions, our friendships, our higher principles, but also our long-term plan. If you're really keen to make progress around your professional situation, who, as much as what you know, can be vitally important over this next couple of months. But it's also important to understand that it's not necessarily going to be a process that goes in a very straight-lined way. There could be lots of other people that are involved in this situation. Holidays can play a role in delaying things. Perhaps people have different view of you, or a different view of what you can give than you do. Perhaps they're not quite aligned. If you're not completely happy in where you're working, or you have people in your life that you feel are dominating you too much and stopping you from really breathing, I think the energy moving through Virgo is really asking you to start to try to find and build new alliances that do work for you better. But if you are wanting to change your job, it's going to take some patience, and it's important to try to put the feelers out as much as you can to go through the whole situation. So Sagittarius, one of the big things for you is usually that you like some excitement, but I think that's really been challenged the last couple of years. You've had a lot more practical issues to contend with, home, emotional and family matters. If you have wanted to break out and do something more spontaneous, then surely the energy in Leo gives you a great prime up to do that. It's just that Mercury moving into Virgo certainly reminds you that there could be some professional elements to what you want to achieve. Sometimes with Mercury in the 10th house, we get an opportunity to retrain or apply for a new role or amend our curriculum vitae. But because of the retrograde in the 10th house, there could be some snags around work. And maybe the snags is because the people you're working with don't really share your philosophies, the 9th house. And if you are working, therefore, in an environment which just really, really chokes off your sense of inspiration, as much as Venus combining with Mercury on the 8th of August can bring some fortune and the conjunction between Mars and Jupiter on the 14th of August can see you impress someone in a dazzling way. I'm just feeling really that if you're not quite sure in what your professional situation is holding for you, or how you're going to move forwards in this part of your situation, I think it is about trying to work through things and really do some research. So the more knowledge you can download and the more you can talk to, the more it can inform your decision in a positive way. But someone can come through for you in a very positive manner towards the end of August as well as the end of September, which could prove to be extremely fortunate. So Capricorn, the energy in the sign of Leo is about transformation. The 9th house, your fellow earth sign of Virgo, very much about knowledge, but the potential for change. If something is transforming in your situation, it could be that you are going to need to gain more information and knowledge in order to guide that process. If you are talking or need to get advice about a financial matter, whether it is an independent mortgage broker, or it is someone who can look at your overall resources in a more holistic way, or you are someone who's very savvy but you just need to do lots of research, download booklets and information to become that much more aware of something you want to do. So there does seem to be a lot of thinking, discussion about a contract, long-term finances that really seem to be feeding into your situation. But I think the clarity can become much clearer to you from the 11th of September. Once Mercury comes out of the post-retrograde shadow, but then also returns to Virgo on the 9th of September, I feel this will really, really help you. You may go through quite a lot of digging. I think it's almost like I can imagine you with your detective smack on, with your collar up and sort of looking around to check no one's following you, and then going into the library and getting the microfiche out and staring down, seeing what's going on. It's that kind of energy. But this is where you can be so good because you're so persistent. You don't give up on something. And if you need to be very consistently applied in trying to work out what you need to do, particularly if it is around a big investment, contractual matter, the more information you gain, the more it's going to empower you. So actually see this retrograde period as an absolute asset to you, because once Venus gets onto your 10th house cusp at the end of August, so in the last quarter of this year, Capricorn, with the solar eclipse of the 2nd of October, very close to that Mercury position in Libra, you really could find that all the talking and all the discussion and the mulling you do suddenly reaches a real high point and can see you bring the last 3 months down on 2024 in a very powerful way as far as your worldly interactions, your work and public recognition. Mercury in Leo for you is very much about relationships, Aquarius. The great thing about Mercury in the 7th house, as it is in terms of your solar perspective, is it can help us to be a bit more detached in a classically Aquarian way, where it's okay if someone sees something in a bit of a different manner. They're entitled to their opinion. We don't all have to agree, blah-de-blah-de-blah, which is really nice. Mercury is a planet which is exalted or rises in Aquarius. It also governs your second decan, so you have a good appreciation of it. Also, of course, it's the primary domiciliary ruler of Gemini, which, like you, shares your air tropicity. So initially with Mercury in Leo, you've got a chance to build some kind of dialogue. Then the transition into Virgo, it's deepening. We're finding out what the words really mean. So some lovely sentiments could have been shared over the last couple of weeks. Was someone for real? You're going to start to really check that out. Now, you can be the Zodiac's armchair psychologist, and if there is something that you need to think very deeply about, you can do once Mercury moves into Virgo. But just be aware that Pluto in your sign forges a quincunx with Mercury in Virgo. So if you feel in working this thing out that you're not being seen or heard, your power, which is Pluto, that could be something that could bug you a bit, particularly if you're discussing a financial matter, or whether you feel really valued, or whether your input really has a meaning. If you don't feel that your input really has a meaning, then that's starting to set a few alarm bells ring. Now, the 8th house retrograde of Mercury could see you trying a business approach in a fresh way. And this is where Mercury retrograde is a really sensitive topic, because for sure you could be argued it's not great timing to try something fresh, but it's probably not right to stick exactly with how you have been doing something. So what you can do is anticipate that this could be a bit of a fluid situation. The 8th house could be a great time, Mercury in the 8th house, to set up some kind of policies that think about your future legacies, or think about the situation of others that you're close to. But if you are trying to raise finance, you might find that there's going to be a few discussions, a few meetings. It's not necessarily going to go quite as quickly as you would like, but I have every confidence that things will work out as you really want. The end of August, or the middle of August, the end of August, even on the 8th of August can be very positive for you despite the retrograde. The 14th, with Mars and Jupiter in a conjunction in your 5th house, your personality power will be enormous. At the end of the month, Venus links with Pluto brilliantly, and then once Mercury moves into Libra, it again links with Pluto. So you're going to get heard eventually, but it may take a bit of patience, and it may require some to and fro in, and just go with the process. Pisces, for you, there's a bit of an irony in this whole process, because the energy of Mercury in Leo, initially not in retrograde, is very much about practicalities, the very thing that Virgo is concerned with. But then once Mercury moves into Virgo from the 25th, that's a great opportunity to try to clarify a communicational issue in a relationship. But once the retrograde begins on the 5th of August, it may feel that things have really got bogged down. Those cross wires can just feel very powerful indeed, particularly because Saturn in your sign goes opposite Venus, the planet of relating, in the middle of August. So I don't think a relationship situation is going to be that easy if there have been tensions. Now, of course, the opposite could be true, because the energy of Leo could be about a job. Maybe you will have to have a number of discussions before you get a situation to exactly where you stand. But for sure, once you get back to the 11th of September, things could be clarified in a way which pleases you. It may just feel a bit tense, a bit stuck, a bit edgy. Maybe someone feels that the way that you relate isn't something that they find easy. They may find you a bit escapist, or a bit fluid in your responses, not necessarily absolutely consistent in the way that they want. So that's something to be mindful as well. But by the time that we get to the end of August and also the end of September, if it is a financial matter that you're discussing, thinking about, or talking about, a property matter, an investment, you'll get a lot more clarity then. But the key for you, certainly through August and September, is to keep the lines of communication open and be as clear as possible and be as patient as possible too. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this Mercury Summer Special Deep Dive. Have a great few months, and goodbye for now.